G'day everyone and welcome back to another video here on the YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be going through my round 16 AFL tips and predictions, as well as reviewing my tipping from last week and seeing which tips I got incorrect. Now if you guys do go on to enjoy this video, as always, could you please show me that by liking the video as well as subscribing to the channel if you guys are new. Enough wasting your time, let's just get straight into it. Now before we do get into the tips, I just want to quickly acknowledge the fact that I do have an ESPN tipping comp. The link to join is in the description below. There are some cash prizes up to win. If you do finish third place, you'll receive cash prize of $15. Second place, you'll receive $30, and the first place, the grand prize for the winner, will be a $100 cash prize. So you're not going to want to miss out. There's not too many rounds to go, and this will be going all the way up until the grand final, so you're not going to want to miss out. Currently in third place is ESPN Fan, yet again, the same as last week. In fact, the top three has not changed at all, and in second place we have DeConti 8, and in first place, for I don't know how long it's been now, but it'll be coming close to 10 weeks, Ben Rafferty is still in the lead, and unless someone can overtake him soon, I think the likelihood of him taking home the $100 cash prize is very, very likely. As for myself, I currently sit at 31st in my tipping comp after scoring a pretty poor round last week after getting 4 out of 7 tips correct. The first tip I got incorrect was on the Friday night between Geelong and Brisbane. I obviously tipped the Cats to get the job done at home, and I think it's pretty obvious why I did do that. It was a huge game for them, the whiteout game. They made a big deal all week, and I just think they really underestimated the skill level from the Brisbane Lions, and they just could not get over the line. It was a pretty shocking loss by them, in fact. They had their opportunities, they just couldn't execute the goals on the scoreboard. I tipped Carlton to get the job done against North. I think only a handful of people did tip North heading into this game, and I think North were very underestimated going into this game. I thought Carlton would go into this game and absolutely pump them. I think they were the better team, but unfortunately they just had a really shocking day of football. It was at the MCG, the first time those two teams have faced off at the G, and I think since 2000 and something. So pretty long time. North Melbourne really just wanted to show everyone what they have got, and they got the job done against Carlton in a pretty close one. And I also got the following game incorrect between Port Adelaide and Sydney. I thought at the Adelaide Oval, two very, very similar sides in very similar form. I thought at home, at the Adelaide Oval, Port Adelaide might just get the job done. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and the Swans ran away with the win. Anyway, now let's get into the thing that you guys clicked on this video to see who I am tipping ahead of this week's AFL round. And to kick off the round on the Thursday at 7:30 PM at the Adelaide Oval, we have the Port Adelaide Power taking on the Carlton Blues. Port Adelaide will go into this game as the favourites, but obviously not by much. Both teams are fresh off a loss, with Carlton losing to North Melbourne and Port Adelaide losing to the Swans. Both games that both teams certainly should have won. Carlton have now lost to 2 bottom 4 sides, obviously Richmond in round 1 and now North Melbourne last week. Port Adelaide, after a pretty huge 2024 season, they haven't been able to carry on that skill into this year's AFL season, and that's even with the skill that they do have in their side in Mitch Georgiades, Connor Rozee, Zach Butters and many more. As for the Blues, despite them having a side that is known for their goal kickers, they really struggled to execute their goals last week, kicking 10 goals 13, and you can just tell why North Melbourne won. They were the more accurate side. Although Mitch McGovern did kick 4 goals last week for the Blues, which is absolutely huge as a man who typically plays down back. And I don't really know what's been up with Jesse Motlop as of late, but his goal kicking accuracy has not been that great. And I think at the Adelaide Oval, despite these two teams going into this game with very close odds, I think Port Adelaide are the overall better team, and they will get the job done by 30 points. Now moving on to the Friday at the SCG at 7:40 PM, we have the Sydney Swans taking on the Western Bulldogs. I will say the Swans are very lucky that this is their home game, because if it was at Marvel Stadium, I'd be completely ruling them out of this one, despite them getting the job done away against Port Adelaide last week. Sam Darcy's return has been absolutely huge for the Western Bulldogs. In fact, ever since his return, he's only played 2 games and he's managed to kick 8 goals between those 2 games. As for the Swans, Joel Lamarty, a man who I predicted to win the Coleman in 2025, kicked 0 goals 6 last week, which is one of the worst performances as a forward you could ever have. And it's not even like they were difficult shots. Some were harder than others, but you had ones from about 20 metres out that you got to be slotting every single time. Errol Goulden made his return back into the Sydney Swans side last week and had a pretty average performance. Not too bad, but you can't expect too much as a man who was coming fresh off an injury. But it is certainly good to see him back in the Swans side, and he's definitely going to need to make a massive impact on the Swans side heading into these final few weeks of the season if they do want to play finals this year. Which, I mean, you never know, they're slowly creeping themselves up and up the ladder. They now currently sit in 11th place, so you can't be ruling them out just yet. And the Bulldogs, it's good to see see them in the top 8. I don't mind the Bulldogs, and I think they are the real deal. I think this week they're going to prove even more that they are the big deal. They're going to get an away win against the Sydney Swans by 20 points. Now to kick off the Saturday at People's First Stadium at 1:20 p.m, we have the Gold Coast Suns taking on the Melbourne Demons. I think this one's really a no-brainer, despite the D's finding a bit of form as of late. There hasn't really been too many games the D's have really shown what they've truly got, and I think the only game they've really been able to show that is against Collingwood on the King's birthday, and they always show up for that game, it seems. Obviously, unfortunately lost the game by 1 point, but let's face it, they were overall the better team that day, and that's coming from a Collingwood supporter. And I'll tell you what, I don't know how this has happened after that huge start to the season by the Gold Coast Suns, but currently they're in 9th place. They've fallen out of the top 8. They should still play finals footy this year, but it's going to be hard. Should have won last week against the Giants. Unfortunately, the Giants pulled off, I think, a 5-goal comeback. But yeah, with Ben King, Ben Long, Noah Anderson, Took Miller, Matt Rao, John Noble, etc. Even Jared Witts in the ruck. He's easily top 3 ruckmans in the comp currently. And yeah, I think the Suns should absolutely dominate in this game, and especially at home. And I think the Suns will get up this week, and the Suns will get up by 35. For the next game, we're heading back to Tasmania between the Hawthorn Hawks and the North Melbourne Kangaroos at 4:15 p.m. at UTAS Stadium. Not too much of an explanation is needed for this one, as the Hawks are a team that are currently fighting for that top 4 spot, as the North Melbourne Kangaroos are just trying to prove themselves and make sure they don't finish in that bottom 4. There has been a few games this year where they have really shown their skill and been pretty impressive. Obviously that draw against the Brisbane Lions, and of course defeating the Carlton Blues last week. So they're going to have their heads held up high heading into this game fresh off a win. Despite that though, we know how strong of a side Hawthorn are at Tasmania, and I think the Hawks will get up here and absolutely smashing. Let's go Hawks by 43. Yes, I guess Saturday really isn't the day for a close game of football, as to finish off the Saturday we have the Collingwood Magpies taking on the West Coast Eagles at 7:35 p.m, and this will be at Marvel Stadium. The Pies are easily the best team in the league currently, and West Coast, well, sitting at 18th of the ladder, dead last. I think it's pretty obvious that they aren't very good at football. Their only win this year has been against the St Kilda Saints, and I'm sure a lot of St Kilda supporters watching this will be really disappointed that I brought that up. But you know what? I've actually got the app up right now. I'm going to show you guys the odds for this game. That's $1.03 to $12.50. I think it's pretty obvious where my div is going. West Coast are almost guaranteed to win the Wooden Spoon this year, as the Pies are currently flag contenders. The likelihood of it being a Collingwood versus Geelong or a Collingwood versus Brisbane grand final this year is very, very high. And I'm going to get the Pies to win this one, and it's going to be the biggest smashing of the week. We go Pies by 62. Another likely thrashing to start off the Sunday. We have the Richmond Tigers taking on the Adelaide Crows. This will be at 3:20 p.m. at the MCG. The Tigers will have the home ground advantage heading into this game, which they're going to need any bit of advantage that they can get, especially as Adelaide do currently sit at 4th on the ladder. They've got some absolute guns in Riley Thilthorpe, Darcy Fogarty, Josh Rochelle, he's been huge the last few weeks, Taylor Walker, who's probably playing, if not one of his last seasons in his career, Ben Keys, one of the most underrated players in the AFL, Matt Crouch, Rory Laird, and to be honest, Jordan Dawson, I think he is currently the best player in the AFL. I think Bailey Smith will win the Brownlow this year, but I think Jordan Dawson is better and more skilled than Bailey Smith. I just don't think he's been as consistent throughout the year as Bailey Smith has been. Riley Bryan should dominate in the ruck against Toby Nankervis, and I think, yeah, even with Isaac Rankin and the midfield that they do have and the defence that they do have, the Adelaide Crows, they should be able to get the job done by an absolute mile. And what a shocking game of footy Richmond played last week against the Western Bulldogs, and that's really not a good look heading into this week. So we are going to tip the Adelaide Crows to get the job done, and we'll go Adelaide by 47. And to conclude this round of football at 5:10 p.m. at Optus Stadium, we have the Fremantle Dockers taking on the St Kilda Saints. The Saints don't really have that good of a reputation at Optus Stadium, as the last time they played there, they did lose to the worst team in the comp, being the West Coast Eagles. Yep, that's the second time this video I've mentioned that game. Obviously coming fresh off a loss against the Collingwood Magpies last week. They did stay in the game up until 3/4 time, but then the 4th quarter, they just ran out of legs and Collingwood did get the upper hand. Nasiah Wangani-Malira, some up-and-coming talent. He's going to be an absolute gun in a few years' time, better than he is now. Andrew Brayshaw and Caleb Sarong, they've been absolutely dominant in the Fremantle Dockers midfield the last few years. The Fremantle Dockers did defeat the Essendon Bombers by by a 41-point margin last week, where both Josh Tracy and Luke Jackson kicked 3 goals each. Sarong racked up a tally of 35 disposals and Clark racked up 33. And in the St Kilda game, Mason Wood had the most goals of the day with 3 goals won, and Masai Wanganeen-Malira most disposals of the day with 35. So both teams do have some really good talent in their side, but unfortunately I think the Dockers are slightly better. But I think the Dockers will get up this week and Fremantle will win the game by 25 points. And that will wrap up this week of tipping. I hope you all did enjoy, and if you did, could you please show me that by liking the video as well as subscribing to the channel if you guys are new. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next video that I post here on the channel.